Um, so this will be the last week of the watercolour project. So next month's theme was still life. So if anybody wants to do still life drawing, painting, that's the theme. I'll do the demos around. Or otherwise, whatever else you fancy doing. If you do fancy doing still life, have a think about a couple of objects you might want to use, and perhaps collect a few bits. I'm thinking probably fairly small things that we can set up on the bench, and that are easily portable. I've got a few bits that I'll bring in, but I obviously won't have masses. I won't be able to set up everything. But if you'd like to do that, that'd be the thing for next month. I thought as a slight lead into that, I'd demonstrate painting sort of single objects today in watercolours. So last week was really practicing the techniques that we've used so far, all the different washes, and in relation to landscape. So that's one of the ones that starts as a demo, which needs quite a bit more work. Quite a few of you got a bit further than I did on that. That's that. So I thought today I'd do a little bit of watercolour demonstration, painting either a mushroom or a pear, or I'll do a little bit of both. I've drawn them out already, and really with the drawing, what I did with the mushroom was I started in the middle and just worked my way around the shape. So I kind of got that shape in, and then I looked at the shapes of the edge just here, and just how close these bits were and where they were relative to that, and then just worked out from there. So I find that the easiest way to draw something like a mushroom. I think quite often we sort of think, well, we'll do the outline and fill in. And I just find it easier to work from the middle outwards sometimes with those sort of shapes. With the pear, it's a little bit different because it is very much there isn't too much to latch onto in the middle of the form. So I kind of started somewhere here, just planned the start and finish, and just work my way around. In terms of the washes, then, so I'll just mix and colour. There's a couple of ways you could go about it. You could either paint the middle bit in first. So I've got a couple of these mushrooms, if anybody wants to. I thought they're quite nice, these ones. You could either paint the middle first, or paint the whole lot one tone, or one sort of like a light pale colour. So I've tried both approaches in a fairly random fashion. So that was doing the whole lot, and then while it was still wet, put some shadows in. This one was doing the middle bit first, and then working it up. But I think I'll do the light to start with. So just need to sort.
Paul, you should do the lighter colours first anyway.
You do really, yeah. So probably I think it's easier to do the lighter. So what I'll do is I'll paint it all light to start with, and then go from there. So when that's kind of maybe creamy browny tone. So I'll use there's a bit of colour on there already on the palette that was a bit of a browny tone. I'll just add a little bit of blue to that. It's a sort of fairly neutral colour really. It's useful having a bit of scrap that you can try your colours out on. So that will come out something like that. Perhaps a little bit more yellowy. So I'll use some of that, but I'll also do a slightly yellowy version as well as that. And again, just try it out and scrap. That's a little bit warmer, so I'll go with that one. And to start with, I don't want it too dark, and I can afford to put this all over the whole mushroom, because these bits that are going to be darker, that colour will be fine underneath that. If it was something like a bright green underneath, it would alter the colour too much. But this is a fairly neutral, very neutral sort of colour together. So I'll pop that in, put a little bit of this in. Try and get that shape. So I've used a little bit of both the colours that I've mixed there. Some areas are very light, so I don't want too much colour there. And I can also lift out a little bit for areas, little bits of highlight there and there. I'll just lift them out with a clean brush. And then some bits are, I don't know if it's hard to tell if it's shadow or just the markings of the mushroom. but a little bit darker in places. So mixed of brown, just adding a tiny bit of red in there, because to me it's got a slightly purpley tone. And while it's still wet, I can put some of those blotchy, shadowy areas in. And it will dry quite quickly, so you need to work quite quickly if you want to get some of these kind of wet effects. So I think for that one, that's probably as far as I can go for the minute. Soften that edge there. There's also shadow that can go underneath at some point. I've got this other one that I started a bit before. I'll just do a little bit on there because that one's dry. So if you let that dry, if you're painting objects, if you've got a couple of objects, you can always like let that dry, maybe just go into another object and then keep softening around. I think with the watercolours, there's a lot of waiting for them to dry and things like that. So quite often having a couple on the go really works. I've gone through this one here. So with this one, I've got the light dark on. Just need to kind of get probably some shadow in here, and so the shadow at the top, a little bit of shadow down the side, and into here. And I don't want a hard edge there, so just add a little bit of water just on that edge, soften that edge. Also want to get the dark area in. So again, it's for me a kind of purpley brown. So I've got some purple and a little bit of brown. Mix those two together. That. Perhaps a bit more blue. Right, try that. A little bit of water. I don't want it too dry. And then just going to go for a slightly smaller brush. Try that out. A bit of scrap. Okay, could do a bit darker. Some black and some purple into that, just to darken it a little bit. Right, let's try that. So I can just pop that on as, whoops, what's supposed to be there. Just work that in quite quickly into that area, and the same in here. And then I'll let that dry, and once it's dry, I can just put some of the bits in the middle in. So that'll be that one. With the pear, it's very much the same sort of procedure. Do a bit of that. So mix of green, some yellow and red. Yellow and blue. A yellowy green. I'm using a little bit of lemon yellow and a little bit of cadmium yellow mixed together, and some cerulean blue. And very quickly just some of those that on. And then while that's wet, I can put some darker greens in the shadow area. So just adding a bit more blue. That, and that can go stronger here. Work that painting. While it's wet, those colours will mingle. So that's, I think, where I'm seeing the shadows there. Then let that dry. And that takes me to kind of that stage. And once that's nice and dry, I can then add details and perhaps make a bit of an impression of the texture and the pear. So we've got a nice dark stalk just here. There's a little bit of shadow underneath the pear, and it's quite good to place these on a white surface. Then you can see the shadows a bit more clearly, and also you haven't got the difficulty of painting all the way around, which is quite a challenge. So the shadows I see as being slightly bluey, just under here. Shape. And a little bit darker just where the pear meets the table, so I'll just use some dark there. Just again, while that's wet, make it a little bit dark on that edge there, and just let that then bleed out into that area. That's not a really good shape in the brush, I think. Maybe have a bit of shadow of the stalk, perhaps a bit better. Then the texture on the skin of the pear itself, I've not gone too much darker because I don't want it to be too dominant. Really just used a bit more of the paint I've got there, perhaps a tiny bit browner. Just a few random marks anywhere where I can see texture on the surface. Just careful not to go too dark. I want to be just lighten that up a tiny bit actually. The other thing I've got to show is that, like if there's a highlight, if this is still wet, I can just lift a bit of the colour out like that. Just a clean brush, just lift a little bits out of the highlight. Should have done that while I'm still on that bit. But yeah, that's basically how I go about painting that. So kind of waiting for painting stages, waiting for bits to dry, trying to work out when it needs to be wet colour into wet colour, when you're better off putting the wet paint over the dry. Okay. Any questions? Right.